It improved my memory too a whole lot.
It improved her 100% because she was actually catatonic for about 8 or 9 years.
Well, see,
And
she didn't.
no, I know it, but I mean,
it's one of the things that.
One of the things,
yeah.
but I can't shut her up now. But before, we couldn't even get her to open her mouth, and it was schizophrenia because she would hear things, and being at home with me, it never worked out. And she was in like 5 different psychiatric hospitals, and every time she came back home, she'd sink back into the same thing.
I'm Darla, I'm Sarah's mom, and from my perspective, when Sarah came into CET, she was still really very sick. We weren't even totally sure yet of her accurate diagnosis, and she was having issues, as we all were, accepting it and understanding. And what I saw happen was her confidence, which you both have talked about, really came back, and she was so frustrated about her lack of short-term memory, and it truly made a difference with her short-term memory, which made her feel more like her old self again. And you know, it was a really tumultuous time for us. She was away at college, and you know, we all thought doing great, and then just went off a cliff, and none of us knew what to do. So we were thrilled when we found. I was on the internet searching for something. I kept thinking there has to be something, and if it meant we had to travel to another city, fine. And then I found CET, and here it was right here. So you know, it worked out very well. So it was a really good experience for us. So really, pretty immediately, I started to see some change, and then I think you know, I recall it now anyway as a very slow and steady progression, where we'd be at dinner one night, and normally, prior to this point, we'd talk about something, and 2 minutes later, she would ask the same question. Like I'd be telling her, don't forget, John and I are going to be away this weekend. We're going to do this and do this and do this, and I'll be back on Sunday. And she'd say, okay, and then, you know, a few bites of food, and then she'd say, what are you doing this weekend? Are we going out this weekend? And you know, Sarah, I just told, you know, but that all changed. And I can't remember where we were in the program, but I remember distinctly at dinner one night, because my husband and I just both looked up at each other because we had told her something, and this time it was me who forgot, and then I went and said something contradictory, and she corrected me, and my husband was like, oh my God, Sarah, you know, Sarah remembered that. You know, it was great. So it really was pretty immediate and like just progressive through the process.
We felt Mark really made progress in CET both times because he was ability to concentrate and focus. I mean, we could have a sustained conversation where before he was, you know, very, very distractible. Another sound would take him off in another place. He'd have a thought, you know, he'd go after it. And so it was hard to have a dialogue of any duration because he was literally all over the place. And his ability to focus in terms of reading and the conversation part, keeping his thoughts in order the way you mentioned, kind of keeping yourself together that way. And the other thing I found was that, it's kind of hard to articulate this, but he started to have interest in things beside himself and his issues, his needs, whatever, you know, empathy, you know, being part of that. But I remember he called one night and he was talking about what was going on in Rwanda, the genocide that's going on in Sudan, and which is deep. I mean, it's really heavy-duty stuff. It's hard to watch, very painful to watch. And he had lots of questions. Why was it happening? Where was the government? Why were they hurting the women and children? Wasn't it like the Holocaust for us? We're Jewish. And it was, I mean, an incredibly complex, deep subject, very, very painful to him. He was very distressed. He said, what should I do? I said, shut it off. I mean, you still have that, you have that choice. But it was a kind of thing where he was really able to take the focus off himself and his own immediate needs and really be able to talk about something that's, I don't want to say abstract, I don't mean it that way, but it's very distant physically from our lives, and it's very different emotionally from what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And it disturbed him enough that he wanted to talk about it, and obviously I couldn't relieve him of his uncomfortable feelings because it's a terrible situation, and he was right. But I was really amazed that he watched the news and understood it and was concerned enough that he wanted to chat it through with me. And I think before CET, I don't want to say he'd be oblivious because I don't want to say it in a derogatory way, but he was so consumed with his illness, and the illness took so much energy from him, emotional energy, that it's caring about other people, as we all know, takes energy, takes emotional energy. And so I attribute that, you know, largely to CET and the ability to focus. And so, not to beat a dead horse, but his not being here today, I don't want people to say that this is a sad story, because it's what he needed.
I got a briefing here. I'm trying to add up between the note I have and I'm trying to figure out how good my study habits are to this day. But I got a brief paragraph here. I think that in the early stage that we are in group session, there are some idea to fall back on, but for creative thinking and understanding. I think it's an early stage so far of the programming, but it has been able to give me thinking and understanding regardless of my name is Donovan Walde, and I've been with CET for a year. This program has made me aware of my strengths. Building from my successes, I plan to pursue a sales position in the company. The new information and ideas I have learned will help me, I think will help me achieve my goal.
That's more, yeah, keep going.
And then my topic is realizing ambitions. And I have a list of topic of realizing ambitions with something to say.
Go ahead.
Stamina or mental effort, either physical or emotional.
Say complete sentences.
Stamina or mental effort. Does rely on physical and emotional position. Concentration, staying tuned to what's happening.
Well, my name is Dr. Maldi, and I was with CET about 8 years ago. And it was a really great program. Sam Flesher was the proprietor of the program, and he went through a lot of great detail, which I really did learn a lot of. Getting into different specific categories of study and the way you should think and how to present yourself and what have you. And I was very, very sorry to hear about Sam about 2 years after I did graduate CET. He had passed away, and I was really kind of upset.
Out at Beachbrook, we serve 16 to 23-year-olds with the same illness I have, and I found that CET, working slowly, has helped me in public speaking, dealing with people, keeping my thoughts organized, and reality checking.
I think I found myself after CET, every once in a while I would catch myself in what CET has done for me. I meet somebody as a customer in a place of business and what have you, and I kind of think about my approach and how I'm dealing with people from the class of CET.
You know, another thing I wanted to add, you know, when Sharon Shoemaker, who was Mark's caseworker at the time, came to me the first time and said, we want him to do CET, it takes 13 months, whatever, and I said, are you kidding me? I said, I mean, to sustain interest in something and following through, 52 weeks is hard for anybody. But he hasn't had an experience like that, you know, since he got sick when he was in high school. And she said, I think he can do it. And I said, okay, I'm skeptical, but okay, you know, I hope I'm wrong. And he did it. He did it twice. And so the power of being able to set a goal and then say, I went to the 52 weeks, and you know, and they graduate. I don't know how much of this Ray may have already told you, but when they're coming through the end of CET, they have to write something about themselves and their experience, and then their families are asked to write something, and there's a graduation, an actual ceremony, because you know, rites of passage are important for all of us. And each time I had to write a note, sat down and wrote it, and then you share it with, you know, your loved one, and so it's a lot of positive reinforcement, and again, the socialization of having to be in something all those weeks and not wanting to let other people down, even though if he didn't quote unquote feel like motivation is a problem for all of us, some more than others. And so I was really surprised that he would hang in there, because he'd been so long since he had a goal that he set for himself and that he met. So it's a very powerful experience to be able to say, I did this for 13 months or 14, I don't remember the length of time. And
50 weeks, I think.
Is it 50, 52? I thought it was 13 months, I don't
Well,
remember.
it's now it's 48 weeks, but when Mark was in, we did like 55 weeks
okay,
actually.
So I'm not, yeah, so
and he had, I think, almost 100% attendance.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Right, Megan, you were in the same group, and
so this is
both groups. He was
big
very
stuff.
proud of that.
Yeah, he was very proud of it, and I was very surprised. So I think the power of the group, your peers, and being part of a group that meets regularly like that is an important part of the process.
I know for Sarah, and especially early on when you're at that place where you're just newly diagnosed or just still being diagnosed, and I know that Sarah would say at the time that she never felt like she fit anywhere. Like her friends that she grew up with were moving on with their life and moving to other parts of the country and taking on jobs and getting married, and she wasn't doing those things, but yet there wasn't really a group of people that she felt comfortable with, and that, you know, were her quote-unquote peers. So when she came to CET, she was finally able to connect with people who were, you know, on some levels at the same place that she was. And some people were further along in the process, which was also good for her, because then she got to see that, you know, okay, I can make progress and I can do better. That it's not necessarily always going to be like this. So that part was really good too.
Yeah, and it was a school environment, kind of like it's a learning environment, and that helped me kind of realize where my cognition was at that point in my life, because you're kind of questioning your own abilities at that point, you know, after you're diagnosed, and it helped me kind of gauge where I was at and where I needed to go, you know, what I had lost and what I had still had and what I could gain and what I was capable of. So it helped me reach my potential.
It's helped me with relating to people and public speaking. After I did CET, they made me a priest. They promoted me. I'm a Zen Buddhist, so I give talks now and again and work with certain populations and whatnot.
It's helped me with learning social cues and all that stuff, you know. Yeah, when to talk and...
Well, I think it's brought her self-esteem up too, because it was down. She didn't have any. And her therapist asked her a little while ago, how's your self-esteem? She said, oh, it's way up on the ceiling. That's how much better she felt, you know. So that it really helped with her self-esteem, and that's probably why she was ready to get married, because she felt better about herself.
Most of all, it helped with management of symptoms, ways to manage your symptoms. Sometimes you in the stay busier, or just doing a couple things a day to try and not focus so much on your problems. And it's very difficult. when you're, well, for me, on a day like this when it's very cloudy, getting the seasonal affect disorder and all that. I just, being married to Jeff is, I not only have a comrade, but you know, we have a lot of support for each other, and that branches out to others also, which CET teaches.
Yeah, and it was a school environment, kind of like it's a learning environment, and that helped me kind of realize where my cognition was at that point in my life, because you're kind of questioning your own abilities at that point, you know, after you're diagnosed, and it helped me kind of gauge where I was at and where I needed to go, you know, what I had lost and what I had still had and what I could gain and what I was capable of. So it helped me reach my potential. It also helped me with disclosure, because you're in a community where everyone knows there's something with you that's different, and you don't know what the other person has and they don't know what you have, so it helps you kind of say, hey, I'm Sarah, by the way, I'm schizoaffective. And it kind of helps introduce the other person and say, well, I have this, if you say it first, you know. So it helped me with disclosure, with just in public and also in CET.
It also helped with my own issues with stigma, self-stigma. As I hear the words floating around here. But it really, like Sarah was saying, she gained an acceptance of the situation. And being around other people, I felt, who have the illness, I felt I was not alone in the matter. Even though we're 1% of the population, I think, right?
Right.
There were other people who had the same illness that I did, and so I was able to kind of shed that skin of stigma, self-stigma.
I think it allows you to take control of your own illness. That's one thing that I learned, is that I can make a difference in my own recovery, which I didn't think was possible.
I think back to the way Sam did Sam Fletcher did have us approach ourselves, and the way of learning of what the material we covered in CET. And it was something when I get to a conference or when I get with people, I start thinking about what how he approached us at one time. And like, you know, the gist and the scenarios and the being rigid and what have you was a big part of that program. And
being flexible.
Flexible.
Be flexible.
Yeah, those are the few that were kind of in my head all the time when I meet with people. And sometime through going through the program, I became discouraged at something. And like 3 weeks into the program, it was discouraging. And after that, I started motivating skills. And it came around that I really did enjoy myself as we did continue.
Well, and you know, I think the thing that's really enduring for me, and Ray and I have kind of a relationship that goes beyond his work with Mark, this is the concept of neuroplasticity. I mean, you know, for many, many years, you know, people say you stop evolving at the age of 5 or 18 or 23. I mean, you pick the number developmentally. And what we found as a result of CET and some of the other research is that the brain continues to be plastic throughout our lives.
Right.
And that's, to me, a very, very helpful concept, not only for Mark, but for me.
In general,
You know, and hopeful in the sense that they say that neurons that fire together, wire together.
Right.
And so the idea that even at my advanced stage, you can still make changes, you can still make alterations in your brain and in your chemistry, and that on an ongoing basis, it's not like you have a diagnosis and then all of a sudden you can see your life in one straight line. With that whole concept is for me to provide it hope. And you know, I work in healthcare and I've worked with neurologists, and so the concept was really revolutionary to me professionally, but it's also very meaningful to me on a personal basis, because it's not like you are your diagnosis.
Right.
You know, and I have my, you know, again, we all have issues. I've struggled with depression, and so the idea of knowing that it isn't just going to have to be one single way, but there's hope, that there's other things that we can do as individuals or families to encourage change throughout someone's life, I think is really, really important. And many, many, many people, including many medical professionals, don't know about the power of the brain to continue to change throughout someone's life. So I think that's really important for people to know.
And I know, as a mom, I was looking for the pill, you know, the thing. What thing is going to bring me my daughter back and make her okay again? And obviously, I can't sit here and say CET is that thing, but it's certainly, in our experience, it's the biggest piece of the thing that we've found yet. That, and obviously, you know, the right meds, but it's a big chunk of it. So it's not like you're going to send your son or daughter through CET and, you know, they're going to come out being the person they were before they got sick. But but it like you said, it allows for hope, and it allows for reaching their highest potential. And you start to realize that the sky's the limit. She can do anything. It may take her longer. She may have to go a different route to get there, but she can get there. And I don't think either one of us thought that before she came into CET. So
Pretty powerful.
it's very powerful. It really is. Really.